This is what if Subaru Natsuki from ReZero was a Stark Touch Iron Man. Part 1, let's dive right into it. So we start our story just diving right into it. We start our story off in the outskirts of a snowy Canada, as we get shown some sort of semblance of an armored figure being cladded in red and gold paint. This red and gold armor flying through the sky as it would have gotten shot down by 3 silver-colored assailants, looking like their armor or covered in armor, looking somewhat like robots. One of them shooting down the man in red, flying down to the far side underneath them, landing into a nearby pillar as a huge crash would have ensued. The 3 assailants would try to find out where the crash site was, trying to look after or trying to find this red covered armored assailant. We get shown this covered man or this armored man walking through the snow, as eventually we would have heard a voice reminiscent of Jarvis.
Allow me to introduce myself. I am Jarvis, a virtual artificial intelligence, and I'm here to assist you with a variety of tasks as best I can.
Some sort of AI voice telling him that the suit, energy, was on low power, as the suit would start to faulty and power down, going into sleep mode, ejecting the user out of the armor, as the armor would have fell into the ground, going into sleep mode, closing itself up, as we see a cold, shivering Subaru Natsuki. Now, or should I really say his real name in this universe, Subaru Howard Stark. Now, just as a disclaimer, I guess for the past thing, let's just say he's gonna be a Stark, and the Stark universe, like the family line, is already gonna be a thing in his world, so he isn't gonna be like a self-made hero. Well, he kind of is, but we're gonna learn a lot more about his past once we, get more into the dialogue of his interactions with other characters, like Amelia, Rim, and Krush, as we'll learn a little bit more about Krush, and Krush's character will actually play a more critical role in this what if. So with this being said, Super would have gotten up from the snowy fall of him being ejected out of his suit, looking over to his suit as Jarvis would have told him that he was going to sleep mode, as he had to work fast and try to get out of the situation as good as he can, as all the armor back home was destroyed and he can't really help him right now. Super getting pissed off as he would have tried to figure out what he could do right now. Him grabbing the armor and luckily finding a piece of rope around him in the forest. He would have grabbed it, tying around the armor of his suit, and started to drag it through the, Canada snow. Him dragging it, eventually finding a town nearby, trying to set his sights over there, but, he would have found himself in an open field, a snowy field. Him looking up and seeing something behind him, and a 7-foot, 8-foot tall robotic machine. It would have lunged at Subaru, as Subaru had nothing to defend himself with. His armor was down, he was freezing cold, he had no weapons or machinery on him. He was powerless in this situation. He was going to die. Him closing his eyes, praying, as he opens his eyes to the sun glistening on his skin, his armor dragged behind him, and him looking around being confused on where he is. Him looking and seeing carriages, beastmen, and other things like that. Him thinking he was in some sort of loophole I mentioned, or maybe even an illusion. But him putting two together in this universe, him being still Subaru Natsuki, being a little bit of a nerd, on top of already being a hero from his world, as he would have instantly put two together, thinking he went to another world, considering that he has met other heroes in his original world that talked about multiversal shenanigans and going to different universes and all that other stuff. So Subaru would put two together, considering maybe he was in a new world. Him grabbing his armor and dragging it on the streets of, this newfound world, as people would look at him with strange looks. His clothing was weird, and his body just didn't look so normal. It was defined, but he looked a little bit too noble to be looking all beaten up. A Super would have dragged his armor into a nearby alleyway, stashing it behind some crates, and going his own way, trying to figure out what information he can get in this new world, trying to do some reconnaissance. Him already having some trinkets and some sort of, pretty much modern tech on him in his pockets already, as he would have been donning his same, orange, white, and black jumpsuit, walking through the corridors and buildings and other stores and markets of this newfound place. Him asking around for information, going around different places, and even using his smart mouth to get some information out of people, learning about where he was. He was in Lagunica. He was also shown and actually, he overheard people talking about an election of some sorts, about a queen or a king, as more or less he would get a good rundown of what this world is and what's going on politically and, well, financially in the world right now. Subaru, knowing this, as he would be kind of impressed on how fast he was able to get some information along with the viewers, because, well, in the original Subaru wasn't able to do this because he was literally just geeked out. But this universe's version of, well, Subaru would have been geeked out, as he would still be kind of discriminated against in that only, the Beastman only bar. Same thing would have happened, but most only different thing is him walking around and actually using his smarts to get information quickly. Now, just a disclaimer, well, yeah, he's a Stark. His personality is kind of shifted a little bit because of his past. So, just a disclaimer, I would say Subaru's personality is a mixture between his original quirkiness and willingness to do whatever it takes to help people and to do the right thing. The heroic original Subaru Natsuki, but also the mentality how Subaru can really go through the ringer and lose his motivation at times, but eventually find himself when it comes down to it. His whole past, him, everything like that, would still kind of push his motivation. But it'll be a lot different because this isn't the Subaru we know. He grew up differently and he had a different, well, family. So in this universe, he's kind of a mixture between original anime Subaru and Tony Stark from Armored Adventures. That peak Iron Man show. So he's a mixture between kind of a teenage Tony Stark and a canon Subaru Natsuki. So with that being said, Subaru would go back to the alleyway trying to find his armor, as he would have been trading in some tech he had, like earbuds, clickers, and some car keys. So some stuff that would most likely be somewhat useless here. Him pawning it off and using his smart, like Tony Stark, mouth to sell these things off for a pretty penny, considering that when he looked and kind of pretty much spied on people a little bit when he was in the market, getting a real good grasp on how the money situation works in this world, considering that he doesn't know how this world is, and it could be dangerous, but it also can be pretty easy. So we see how Subaru walks back to the alleyway after selling all these things and starts to walk back to his armor to try to get it set up for more traveling. As he gets stopped when he sees 3 thugs about to take his armor, Subaru instantly tells him to stop. Hey, I ain't gonna let you just take my stuff. As they look back at him and chuckle, saying, you're going to let us take it, or either we'll just rob you too and take your armor. So they proceed to try to rob and run Subaru's pockets. But surprisingly to the audience and to me, Subaru got hands like that. I know what's right, what's wrong. I guess I don't. Straight up starts to body slam all of them until the third guy takes out a knife and tries to stab Subaru. Subaru dodges, weaving and punching one of them in the gut, sending them flying into a nearby crate, knocking him out. The big guy grabs Subaru and puts him in a headlock, but Subaru kicks him right in his nards. As he yells out of pain. Subaru chalking him right in the forehead as he goes for another blow at the guy in the middle, but the guy stabs Subaru in the chest. Subaru starts to bleed out as Subaru starts to bleed a little bit, coughing up blood as he falls out to the ground. As the guys are about to pretty much scram and try to grab his armor, as they get stopped once they see, well, a blonde-haired girl running past them. They're confused and they think they're gonna, basically get snitched on, but the blonde-haired girl just runs past them and just doesn't really care what's going on, as she pretty much says toodles and runs past all of them, going on another rooftop alongside the alleyway. So they just go back to what they were doing and try to haul the armor out of the alleyway, but get stopped when another woman shows up, a white-haired woman. As she tells them, where did a blonde-haired girl go? As Subaru thinks he's gonna get saved, but yet again she says, oh, thank you, and is about to walk off as Subaru is thinking to himself, holy crap, I'm about to die from 3 thugs. As you're probably wondering, oh snap, how was Subaru able to, fight like this? Original Subaru didn't have hands like that. Let's just say in this universe, since a lot of things happen differently in this Subaru's past life and how he was raised and also how he was trained, considering that he literally made an Iron Man suit and more or less is a decent amount of combat training, enough to keep up with thugs and lower tier type of threats. He ain't no Reinhardt, or he ain't no, he ain't no Roswell or Rem or Rom type fighter, and nothing like that, but he is able to keep his own and actually fight hand to hand. So we see that Subaru relieves and sighs in, well, desperation as he's trying to hold on, but these guys are about to, jack him at everything he has. But the white-haired girl stops midway, saying that I can't in good consciousness just leave you guys here to kill somebody. It's not, it's not who I am. As she fights against the guys, as they instantly scram, because, well, no one's gonna fight her, bro. Like, what the hell? I'm not fighting a magic user, bro. As she's about to absolutely flame these guys. Not like actually, but she about to whoop their ass. But they instantly scram and get out there as fast as possible. One of the guys grabbing their dude and trying to lug him out of the alleyway. After that happens, Subaru is instantly healed or is comforted by Amelia. So Amelia heals him as we get switched a few minutes later as Subaru wakes up, seeing that he's on some sort of somebody's lap. Somebody's lap. As Subaru says, well, it's a little furry. Kind of itchy. But kind of soft too. Hey, so what the heck? As he sees it's a humanoid cat. And he introduces himself as Puck. He talks and talks and they converse, and Subaru asks, who are they? She, well, introduces herself as Satella, and this is Puck, my spirit. As they start to talk a little bit, as Subaru asks her, why did you help me? As she says, it was incredible exchange. I want to ask you some questions, and I was hoping you would help me. As Subaru is asked a few questions about the blonde-haired girl, as he says, oh, she went that way on the other rooftop, and all this other stuff. But she also asked 2 extra additional questions based off of Subaru's, different, let's just say, things happening. So she asked him what's up with his armor. As Subaru introduces it as his Iron Man armor. As this version of Iron Man armor that Subaru has, this is around his 3rd version of his Iron Man armor, as it's kind of a 3-way mixture of the Iron Man 2 armor, the Iron Man 3 armor, and the Iron Man 1 armor. So it has all the functions and capabilities of the Iron Man 2 armor, and also the flight and pretty much summoning and pretty much sentry mode that the Iron Man 3 armor has. So he can basically have the armor if it was like at full percent. It could walk around with him and be a bodyguard. It can also summon to him. It can also come to him in pieces and parts like the Iron Man 3 armor. And it could also compact itself into, well, a more easy able movement. So we see that Subaru asks her to step back as he walks towards his armor, as he's able to jumpstart with enough juice from his arc reactor in his chest, as she also asks about that. Subaru tells her that it was sort of a gift that his grandfather gave him, and it was to keep him alive, and all of him basically would be very cryptic, but basically Subaru would have gone on to say that it was something that he was born with, and he needed some sort of outside source to keep him alive and to keep him functioning. So his grandfather made this, and she asked him, who's your grandfather? And Subaru, knowing this is a new world, and most likely what he comes from and who he is doesn't probably matter here. So Subaru goes on and says that, he was a very well-known engineer and scientist. Now, with this being said, we see that Puck senses no real malice with these words, as he believes Subaru. And Subaru tells them that he's from a faraway land and he came here for more opportunities. He talks to them as Amelia suggests that, are you an engineer too? Subaru saying, yeah, kind of a scientist, as he boots up his armor, jumpstarting it with enough juice for it to activate and compact itself into a backpack easily storable mode, as this is what it looks like, as he's donning an Iron Man armor type backpack. So with that being said, Subaru grabs his backpack and chucks it on his back, telling her that before you go, I want to help you. As she smirks, saying, I can't do that. You told me all I wanted to hear, and you helped me out. But Super saying that where I come from, if you help somebody and save their lives, it's more you can do for them besides tell you where a girl went and what direction they went. As he suggests that she probably went another direction entirely and probably did a sharp turn somewhere. So they start to talk, start to walk around, and she gets a good rundown of who Subaru is. Subaru's asking questions from her yet again, as she asks, who are you? Him saying that his name is Subaru Howard Stark, but you can call me Subaru. They start to talk a little bit, as Subaru goes on about how he's from a little bit of a far ways around here, and yet again he came over some opportunities and different choices in life. As he doesn't want to tell her too much about how he got summoned here, and more or less summoning and reincarnation and all other stuff, he doesn't think it would be a very popular mode of talking here. He doesn't think people really know what the hell that is, so Subaru just more or less keeps it under wraps. He does ask her a few questions about this world as well, considering that he only got a few pieces of information on his little reconnaissance mission earlier on today. Satella, continuing saying, well, you're kind of in Lagunica, as she goes on about what's going on here, and she doesn't go into deep detail on who she is, but she does say that, she came here and she kind of lost something important to her. It was a pendant, and it was something that was given to her that was very important. Super saying that, well, in that case, I'm gonna help you, and I'll be glad to, as he chuckles as they share a little bit of a laugh and kind of lock eyes. But Subaru instantly shutting that down, telling her, let's go and try to retrace your steps. A few hours pass as eventually it's nighttime as they find themselves near the slums of Lagunica, basically their hood. As they go, as Subaru finds a auction house, as they're confused on what this is, but more or less he says that he's gonna look and check it out, as Satella says okay as they step back. He opens the door as he instantly feels a whiff of death and stench. He walks over and he steps in a pool of blood, seeing the blonde-haired girl he saw earlier dead, and a big, bulky, brown-skinned man on the ground, shish kebab. He's about to yell for Satella to get out of here now, but he gets stabbed in his gut, being absolutely filleted like a fish. Subaru falls onto the ground, gripping his gut as he coughs up blood. As you see a black-haired, weirdly sexy woman, actually technically woman. She a woman. She a woman.
Bitch, I see what you did there. I know.
Pause. I'm doing too much meat wrapping. But we see that Subaru coughs up blood as the situation becomes very apparent that he's going to die. As Satella hears the thud from Subaru getting sliced open, as she opens the door, as she gets side blitzed, instantly also being killed. Subaru watching the light in her eyes fade as Subaru dies himself. But the whole day rewinds as we see as Subaru opens his eyes right back at the marketplace.
What's the matter, boy? You look like you've seen a ghost. Say something. Are you okay?
I have no idea.
Now, during that time, he thinks back what happened as he remembers meeting that white-haired girl, almost dying. He remembers helping her out by saving a little girl from being lost in the city, and all this other stuff. As Subaru's just confused and waving all over the place, kind of thinking what the hell happened. Subaru heard about other tales of heroes coming back from the dead, but it was always, regeneration or coming back from some sort of superpower, but nothing like rewinding or reliving a day. As Subaru's really confused on what he's supposed to do. But he gets interrupted once he's pretty much lounging near his armor as 3 thugs try to rob him. Subaru looking up, being kind of suspicious and saying that I'm not going to do this again with you guys as he walks past them, but they're not letting that slide. As they push Subaru back on the ground, telling him that they want all the stuff in his pockets and that little fancy armor. As Subaru looks up at them, saying, "Really?" Subaru gets into a fighting stance and starts to fight them, but with Subaru being a little disorientated, having his mind scattered, he would have forgot one major thing. These guys had a knife. So the third guy, he absolutely punked like an actual football the first time around. The 3-foot guy, he had a knife. He had a knife the whole time. So they just shish kebab Subaru as he dies. As we see Subaru restart yet again. Subaru opens his eyes, being pissed off and more or less more scared. As the Apple shop owner tells him, "Yo kid, are you gonna buy something?" Subaru being right back at the place he was before. He puts 2 together pretty quickly and runs off from the Apple owner as he sits down into a nearby alley and tries to figure out what's going on. He talks to himself and says it must be some sort of power or ability from him being reincarnated here, as he calls it returned by death, as he thinks it's some sort of reloop power that he has, and it pretty much brings him back to a certain checkpoint. His checkpoint now seems to be the marketplace and the Appa store owner, or the Appa cart owner. So he tries to figure out what he can do this time around. The first time, he did things kind of normally, but now that he knows where the auction house is, he puts 2 together and goes there first. And goes there, well, before he meets Satella, or even Reinhardt for that matter. As he goes there, and it's around nighttime-ish, as it takes a little while for him to get down there, but he gets there a little earlier on than how, well, Satella and him got the first time around. Super walking and walking as he bumps into a black-haired girl and helps her back up as she says, "Oh, sorry," as Subaru apologizes profusely, saying, "No, sorry, I'm just a little lightheaded, that's it, my mind's a little cloudy," as he stops midway before he talks, as he sees a familiar face. More of a terrifying face, as seems to be the same woman from earlier. He talks to her as he tries to mask his fear with flirting, considering that he's a billionaire playboy philanthropist in the real world, or in his world. So more or less, this version of Subaru being a mixture of Tony Stark's charm and smart mouth and smarts. He tries to mask his fear of her with flirtatious vibes, and tries to flirt with her off rip as she's kind of flattered by this. She tells him that her name is Elsa, as Subaru kind of stutters a little bit, but keeps a straight face and says it's a very beautiful name. He throws a little bit more game, and more or less, he tries to de-escalate the, the weirdness of him flirting with a woman probably years older than him. So, more or less, he tells her to have a nice day, and he walks the opposite way. As Subaru instantly lets go of a huge amount of breath he was holding in as his heart is throbbing out of his chest. Subaru grabs his arc reactor as he's confused on how the hell he's functioning right now. Subaru basically looking back at his armor and thinking about going or armoring up right now to fight this girl, but realizing that he probably is out of juice and most likely he only has around 10 minutes of fighting power if he did activate his armor right now. So Subaru walks off as he eventually finds the, auction house. Subaru walks to the auction house, seeing the old man he saw earlier, as Subaru is way more, let's just say, confused, but tries to throw in the back of his head, considering that he saw this little guy, he saw this old man murdered not even a few hours ago. So Subaru talks to the old man as our conversation goes similar to the same, but Subaru using more of his, Stark-like charm to kind of convince him to auction off or trade the pendant for his smartphone. Him taking out an iPhone 15 Pro Max.
Shut your brain, man.
Subaru talks to old man Rom and tries to make kind of a deal, but he says that Felt is coming back and she would want to pretty much, let's just say, make a little negotiation. She wants to see all the other sides and see which one would bet her the most money. As Subaru waits. And eventually, the blonde-haired girl from earlier, known as Felt, shows up. And they talk and pretty much yap a little bit as Subaru suggests to, pretty much sell his phone, saying that it could take pictures and it could voice record and a bunch of other things. As it more or less is kind of tweaked because, well, let's just say Subaru, he hates the iPhone, phone storage, and also the fact that it literally has ass battery time. So he just mods it with Sharp Tech to make it last a few days to a couple months minimum without charging. So we see that Subaru tells her that he would sell it to her, as Old Man Rom says it's worth a pretty good penny considering that it might be a very high tier meat to you. As Felt says interesting, but she also points to Subaru's chest, as Subaru has his jacket unzipped, showing his arc reactor glowing through his chest or glowing through his shirt. She asks him what's that, as he says it's a health device that keeps his heart pumping. As he zips up his jacket, as they're confused, but Felt also asks what's on his back, pointing towards his backpack, as it's his Iron Man backpack. So Subaru says that it's something he made and it's special to him. He can't just sell it. And Felt saying, well, this pendant is special to me. Subaru looking back at her saying, well, I'm gonna send you and I'm going to tell you right here, I'm only selling the meteor. As they're all kind of, trying to, Felt especially, she's trying to milk this guy out of everything he has if he really wants that pendant that bad. But she lets it go and tells them he's gonna have to wait until the other buyer shows up. A few hours pass by as Subaru finds the same girl, or the same woman he saw earlier today. She walks into the, auction house and looks over and sees a familiar face, the boy that flirted with her earlier. She chuckles saying, it's you again, as they look towards each other, as they get interrupted when Felt tells them, well, who's gonna pay me the most money? I need my cheddar! As they start to talk, and the cooperation, the bidding begins. Subaru eventually wins at the end of the, bidding because, Stark Charm, and also he wins originally anyways. So Subaru, more or less, is excited to get the pendant. As before he goes, we see that, Elsa asked him, just curious, out of curiosity, what are you gonna do when what are you gonna do with the pendant? As he says, I'm gonna give it back to the owner. Subaru instantly is feeling a huge wave of just tenseness in the air. You can cut it with a chainsaw. As Subaru looks over behind himself as he was right near the door, about to walk out of the auction house, as the pretty much black-haired woman tries to go for a clean stab towards Subaru. Subaru dodging narrowly, having his cheek instantly kind of nicked by the blade, as Subaru falls on the back of his back, being grabbed out of the way by Felt, as Felt tells him to get out of here now, and also yells at him saying you're a dummy, and why would you say something that's stupid? Do you even know what this pendant is? Do you even know how important it is? It's a yap at Subaru, but more or less Old Man Rom tells them to get out of the way as she'll handle this. As, let's just say, we're gonna cut it short, the fight happens similar to the same. Old Man Rom gets packed up like a sushi kebab, bro. He gets chopped!
Be good for my vocals.
Sorry, man.
I'm gonna tickle you again.
Wouldn't let that shit happen to me, though.
And as he gets absolutely folded, Subaru realizes that he needs to fight back, and he isn't gonna just let this little girl die. Considering that he literally had zero movement or zero chance to react when Old Man Rom got cut up like a shish kebab. As we see that Subaru gets into a fighting stance as he tells Jarvis to activate the suit. Subaru would have armored up, donning his Iron Man armor, as it's more like, it looks kind of like this. Put a picture up right here. This is the most, the closest I can find to the Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2 armor in anime art style, so just look at this. So that's basically what he's donning. As I said earlier, the looks are a mixture between the Iron Man 2 and Iron Man 1 armor. Mainly the Iron Man 2 armor. But we see how Iron Man, or basically Subaru, dons his armor. As Jarvis tells him
Welcome back, sir.
All systems for gaming will be prepared in a few minutes. For now.
Subaru gets into a fighting stance as she's impressed, especially felt as well as they were impressed by his armor and how fast it just wrapped around his body as it came out of nowhere. As we see that, well, Felt would have seen this saying, how the hell, you should have told me that. I would have given you it instantly if you told me you had that in your backpack. As he tells her to get out of the way now and to find some help instantly. He chucks her out of the auction house trying to get her out of the way. As you see that Elsa doesn't want to have any witnesses, considering that her buyer or her employer doesn't want any type of, let's just say, unnecessary clout around this fight. So she instantly runs out of the auction house trying to get the belt, not trying to have any witnesses, Jesus. Subaru flies out of the ceiling of the auction house, flying back down and tackling Elsa into the ground, making a mini crater. Elsa jumps back and kicks him into a nearby room in another house. Most of them, the slum owners, pretty much the hoodlums that live here, more or less are scared out of their mind because an armored covered man got kicked through their wall. Subaru says sorry and flies back out as he lands Iron Man style in the middle of the road, stopping Elsa from chasing Felt. Felt looks back and looks at Subaru give her a thumbs up, telling her to get out of here now. A fight ensues between Elsa and Subaru. They throw fist, blow for blow, and attack for attack. A repulsor blast being thrown left and right, trying to throw Elsa off her game. Elsa is kind of impressed by how fast and how diligent Subaru's moving with his attacks, as Jarvis tells him that there's not much he can do here. Her speed and her endurance is outsane, and they need better energy or substantial power reserves to actually keep up with her speed, as the flying and propulsor beams and jet propulsion that they're using to keep up with her speed is immediately cutting down on their energy reserves so fast. Subaru telling the armor to shut up as he's gonna handle this by himself. But more or less, faster she gets, the more dangerous she gets, and the more and more she tries to cut through the armor, as dents and scratches and scraps are starting to be shown a lot more furiously and a lot more, let's just say, deeper, as Jarvis is telling him that the armor is probably not going to be able to hold up, as it could take more splashes and more cuts, but more or less her pure raw strength and her speed is taking down their energy reserves pretty quickly, as before then, the Jarvis AI would have told him that the armor is around 20 to 30 seconds away from rejecting him, or pretty much pushing him out of the armor itself to relieve the power and also to stop him from being stopped or stuck in the armor when it passes out. So more or less, it's basically a back out or a pretty much backup system, so his armor doesn't have him locked in it once it runs out of power. So the last 5% of power is used to push the user of the armor out of the armor like a rejector or a system. So more or less Tony or Subaru, sorry, my narration kind of bad right now, I'm sorry guys. Subaru falls down to the ground as he has around 10% power left, and the only other 5% he can use right now is a huge blast. And he doesn't have enough power to do an arc reactor blast or anything like that, as he tries to hit her with a missile, summon it from his wrist, and pretty much shoots it off at Elsa. Elsa getting hit point blank in the chest by it, as a huge explosion erupts in the slums of Lagunica. As Subaru's confused and kind of, saying maybe she's dead, maybe she's down, because no normal person could survive that. But Tony is told by the AI, when scanning her, she seemed not human. As Subaru is confused, saying, "What do you mean?" As she runs up behind Subaru, stabbing him in the back of his repulsor beams or his jets, as Subaru gets sent flying into a nearby room, right back into the auction house. As the armor tells him that it's shutting down, as Subaru says no, 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 as the armor ejects him out of his body. As Subaru gets back up, trying to get some sort of sword or something off the ground to propel himself for another fight, but he instantly gets stabbed in the back of his throat, restarting and coming back to the marketplace. I'm going to leave it off here, guys. Now, the audio might be a little bit different, but this recording got like over 2 hours long. So, we'll be leaving it off here, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. And as always, guys, have a blessed day. Deuces.